Today we're going to go over ratio and rate, which is in section 5.4 of your BJU Press PreAlgebra textbook. So let's begin on talking about what a ratio is. A ratio is just a comparison of two numbers, and that comparison can be written as a fraction or as a sentence comparing them with the word to, or as a colon. So here's our definition. A ratio is a comparison of two numbers by division and is often written as a fraction. So remember, a fraction is division. So we have A to B, which is written these three ways: as a fraction, so A in the numerator and B in the denominator. And then we have in a sentence A to B, so we're comparing A to B. And then we can also write the ratio using a colon here. So again, we're comparing A to B. So why do we use ratios? Well, let's look at this example. Let's say we have a school that has 192 students and 12 teachers, and we want to know what is the student-teacher ratio. This is something that's kind of important when you're considering going to a school, because you don't want to get into a class that's too big. And so what we can do is we can compare the number of students to teachers and get a student-teacher ratio. So it wants student-teacher, so our first number we're comparing is the number of students, which is 12, and we're comparing that to the number of teachers, which is 192. And if we were to reduce that, we could see that we have one student for every 16 teachers. So we have a 1 to 16 ratio. Another example, if that school has 112 girls and 80 boys, what is the ratio of girls to boys? So our first number is the girls, which is 112, and we're comparing it to the boys, which is 80. So 112 goes on top and 80 goes on bottom. And then we'll go ahead and reduce that, and we get our ratio of 7 girls to 5 boys, or 7 over 5. The same school, with the number of girls and number of boys, what is the ratio of teachers to boys? So remember, teachers, there are 12 teachers and there are 80 boys. And we're comparing teachers to boys, so we're going to put the teacher number first, which was the 12, over 80, which was the boys. So when we reduce that, we get 3 over 20. So our ratio is 3 to 20. So 3 teachers for every 20 boys. Another example, doing ratios. What is the ratios of boys to teachers? So this one, you're like, well, we just did that. But it is a little different because we're looking at boys to teachers. So we're going to list the boys first and then the teachers. And then we get the ratio of 20 boys to 3 teachers. So order is important. So let's look at an example of ratio in a different scenario. We're going to talk about a baseball team. They won 8 games and lost 10. So we want the ratio of games won to games played. So they won 8 games, but we want to compare it to the number of games they played. If they won 8 and they lost 10, that means that they played 18 games. So the ratio of games won to games played is going to be 8 over 18. And if we go ahead and reduce that, we say that that ratio is 4 to 9. So they won 4 games to every 9 games played. So let's get the ratio of games won to games lost. So 1 over lost. So 8 to 10. So that means that for every 4 games that they won, they lost 5 games. Another example, we have somebody who is making basketball free throws. And let's say he makes 3 out of every 4 free throws. So if he does 4 free throws, he's going to get 3 of them. Going to go ahead and make 3 of them. We want to know what is the ratio of free throws made to those attempted. So he so we want the number that he makes compared to the ones attempted. So he's making 3 for every 4 attempted, so the ratio will be 3 to 4. So notice how I wrote this differently. I could have written as the fraction 3 over 4, but I'm actually going to go ahead and use the comparison 2 and say 3 to 4. So what about the ratio of free throws made to those missed? So if he's making 3 free throws, but he's missing 1 because out of every 4 that he makes, he misses 1. So that means the ratio of free throws made to those missed, well, he's making 3 and missing 1, so that ratio would be 3 to 1. All right, let's talk about something different. We're going to talk about rate. Now, rate is just a ratio. It is a special type of ratio. So a ratio is comparing two numbers. A rate is comparing two numbers that are kinds of measures, like measurements. So you're not just comparing numbers, that's a ratio, but you're comparing measures, and that's going to be your rate. So, and then we can go even further with rate, and we can say, well, what's a unit rate? Well, unit means 1. So when you're going to do a unit rate, it's just going to be a rate, so it's a comparison of two measurements, but we want to compare that quantity to 1. So we want to make sure that our denominator becomes 1. So a car traveled 210 miles in 4 hours. What is the unit rate? So we're comparing miles to hours. So that's 210 over 4. But in order to make it a unit rate, our denominator has to be 1. So we're going to divide both numbers by 4 in order for our denominator to be 1. And then we end up with 52.5 to 1. So 52.5 miles to 1 hour. So when we write our unit rate, we can just say 52.5 miles per, which is the little slash mark here, hour. So a plumber charges $288 for 6 hours of work. What is his unit rate? So we're comparing dollars to hours. So we'll divide both numerator and denominator by 6 to get our unit rate. And we get 48 to 1. So that means $48 for every 1 hour. So $48 per, which I'm going to use my slash mark for, hour. Okay, so let's go back to Jeff making his free throws. So he's still making 3 out of every 4 throws, okay? If he attempted 100 free throws in the entire season, how many did he make? So remember, out of every 4, he's making 3. So 4 goes into 100 25 times, and he's making 3 of that. So 3 times 25 is going to be 75 free throws. So let's say he made 60 free throws in the season. How many did he miss and how many did he attempt? So if he made 60 and he's making 3 out of every 4, that means for every 60 divided by 3, that's how many that he's missing. So 60 divided by 3 is 20. So that means there's 20 free throws missed, and then 20 plus the 60 that he made means he made 80. He attempted 80 the entire season. So let's go, we were talking about free throws in the other example, but now let's move on to his 3-point attempts. So the 3-point is, across that one line. So it's a little bit more difficult to make. So now he's only making 1 out of every 3 attempts. So 1 out of every 3. And whenever he makes a 2-point attempt, he's getting 1 out of every 2. So like 50%. Is he better off shooting 3-point shots or 2-point shots? So if he's making 1 out of every 3 3-point shots, so that means like this, 30%. And if he's making 1 out of 2 2-point shots, that's like 50%. So does it matter though? Because if he makes a 2-point shot, it's not worth as much as the 3-point shot. So in this one, because the shots are worth different points, it's not going to matter in this case. Okay, so let's say we have 3 partners who own a business. and they are going to divide the money that they get evenly, not evenly, but as a ratio, okay? So one person owns 3 parts of the business, another one owns 5, and another owns 7. So the ratio is 3 to 5 to 7. So 3 to 5 to 7. How much will each get if the total profit is $387,000 if it's divided on the basis of the ratio of the ownership? So, and for this one, we would have to consider 3 to 5 to 7, how much that is total, and then go ahead and divide that by the 3 and the 5 and the 7. So you would get $77,400 for the person who owns 3 parts, $129,000 for the person who owns 5 parts, and $180,600 for the person who owns 7 parts. Okay, so in the Bible, the firstborn in biblical times, so the firstborn son usually received twice as much inheritance as the other son. So if you were firstborn, you kind of had it, you were born already getting twice as much inheritance as your siblings. Okay, if there are 4 sons in the family and the inheritance to be divided totals $875,000, how much will each inherit? So it's 2 to 1 to 1 to 1 is the ratio, right? Because the first son gets twice the amount, so 2 to 1 to 1 to 1, because there's 3 other sons. So dividing that, the firstborn is going to get $350,000, okay, or twice as much, and then the other sons are going to get $175,000. All right, that's all for this lesson. Go ahead and try some problems on your own.